What I've got myself is something I've been wanting to do for some time, which is to just take us all through an ordinary, simple Registax stacking. And I'm not going to present it as the definitive way of using Registax. And what I'm going to do is ask that perhaps you might like to not mute yourselves and feel free to butt in and suggest something not have mentioned.
What you wish for.
Everyone except for Steve. Anything I might not have mentioned or anything that you feel is a better idea. So we'll try doing that and see what happens. Because as I say, I've by no means got all the answers. So I'm going to share screens, and what I've decided on is an image, and that's not what, that wasn't it actually, sorry, of Jupiter. You will not get an image like this because it was taken some time ago when Jupiter was a lot higher. So at the moment all the planets are very low down, and they're not a patch on what they used to be, but the good news is that they're slowly getting a little bit better as the weeks go by. So I'm going to show you the video instead, if I know how to do that, and I'll just share, it was hopefully this video. There we are. So I hope you can see that. Yes, you can. And that's what it looks like, folks. Now, just keep watching it. I think I remember actually this night. And although the tail end of the video is quite good, you just watch the beginning. It smashed, crashed all over the place. It was windy, that's what I'm trying to say. So you can appreciate that trying to get any sense out of that lot, even though the focusing and the seeing wasn't too bad on that night. By the way, the planet was probably in the order of 40 odd degrees high, which is an awful lot more than it is at the moment. So trying to make any sense out of that at all is going to take some doing. Unfortunately, Registax is very good at doing that. So this is the image being caught and loaded onto Registax. So that's what we're going to use. And I've chosen this planet because it's quite quick for Registax to align. And what we do is we do something called setting align points, which are funny little things, which sort of define different places on the image. Now I can get the Registax to do it itself, and that's what it has decided. I've never understood why it hasn't gone to the very edge, but I can actually improve things.
I can't see your sharing, I'm afraid. You just got
nothing there.
Yeah.
Just says Robert Reed started screen sharing.
That's interesting.
Stop and then start again with Registax.
You just stopped.
Okay.
Now I can see you.
Right, I'll try sharing the same thing again.
After Jupiter, we couldn't see anything.
They got a picture now.
Yeah,
I don't know what caused that. So Registax has attempted to fill in what it thinks is a suitable number of these funny alignment points. I'm not happy with what Registax has done. You can change it, by the way. You can change the separations, and each point is like the center of a box. And what it does is that it looks at the image within that box. And as the frames of the movie go by, it attempts to register all the pixels, or some of them, within that box, and it tries to join it in with surrounding boxes. Now, I'm much happier with what I've just done now, because that's a good spread of points.
Did you just do that?
Did what?
Did you just do that?
I did half of it, and the program has filled in some of its own points. The program filled in 24, but with the ones that I've just put in, it's now 59. And by the way, if I don't like any, I can right click and it will make them disappear. I can try and make them disappear. It's not happy, is it? All right. It looks like I'm landed with what there is. So I'll go on to the next stage. These are the various parameters that you can set those align points, and you can appreciate that if I had a whole frame full of, for instance, a scene of the moon, then it would require much more spaced out align points, and I'd have to well, it would end up in many hundreds. So it will take a lot more time to do. That's why I've decided against a lunar landscape for tonight, something that's hopefully fairly quick. Unfortunately, at the point that it's not playing the game with me, it was just around the red spot. That's the red spot on Jupiter there, and it's not allowing me, but never mind. I'll use what I've got. And something else which is interesting is right down at the bottom here. Hope you can see my cursor, but you can set it to so many percent of best frames. John was talking about this with his sun pictures, and I was amazed that he was only picking out 5% of all the total frames in a movie file that he'd shot. Well, I'm being a bit more optimistic. I'll give it 20%. I might even give it 25, and we'll see what happens. So we're now going to go through the alignment process. So I'm going to click on this top left button called Align and see what happens. This is the bit that takes a long time. Well, normally it does, so it would have done if it was the surface of the moon. And that's what you've ended up with. Now, I don't know what you think about that picture. It'll probably look very similar to the original one, but it is a little better, actually. Limit means that it's going to take the numbers of frames down to what I've told it, which is 25%. And the little, can you see little green lines? That gives an indication as to where the image has migrated to over the course of the movie. My movies are, I usually set them to half a minute. I've just heard that John, with his sun pictures, sets them to a couple of minutes. Even my half a minute of movie produces about 1 gigabyte of memory that's needed, a file of 1 gigabyte size. So to me, that's a lot of memory. That's why I don't use too long a time. But But those little green lines can be rather long, and they can be rather confused if the heat is having its way. By the way, I hope you noticed the thermal agitation as well as the wind agitation in that original video. The thermal agitation is the main enemy. And that's the main thing that Registax is trying to defeat, because it's moving its little alignment boxes, hopefully in line with the shimmering of the heat, and trying to match them up and stick them all together. So I'm now going to do this thing called stack, which I'll do now. And if you look at the far bottom, 44, 55, 66, 100%. And we've actually ended up with an image, and that's its final image. You might again say to yourself, well, that's not much of an improvement, but in fact it is. And we've, oh, what's going on? Zoom quit unexpectedly. Right.
Do you, it's usually Registax that does that.
Shall I sign on? Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Ah, I'm still there.
You're there, yeah.
Right, shall I try sharing
So, yeah, just want to share again.
again? Right. So, share screen. Sorry about this. I was stopped in my crime. Can you see?
No, just,
Did that last time, didn't it?
yeah.
Oh, I was just getting to the exciting bit.
It might be worth coming out to Zoom and going back in. If it's.
Do you think so? I'll just try once more to share the screen.
Well, you got anything else running that's using a lot of memory as well
Uh,
at the same time on the bottom one?
yeah.
The Registax will use a lot of memory,
Yeah.
Yeah, that, I think that one.
but it seems to have done it.
Try without that.
I've got a picture back.
Right. Sorry about that. I'll go on to the next stage, where we have things called wavelets. And wavelets are they're sort of sharpening tools. And on this left-hand side, we've got different degrees of sharpening, from the coarsest at the bottom to the finest at the top. And what I'm going to do is it's quite difficult actually, I've not got a mouse, but, well I have, but it's not connected. I'll show you what happens if I use a coarse one. And the answer is nothing.
Do you want to follow this mouse?
To tell you the truth, I've got my own somewhere, but that should have done something then. Let's try the next one. Ah,
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
So you can see what happens. These are very coarse sort of improvements to the image. We're trying to make it a little bit more well defined.
Do you always download a movie onto it, or can you put on a series of photographs?
Good question.
How many do you have to have?
You can put on a series of photos, but unless you use a good number, Registax won't be able to make much of an improvement.
Right.
So, you know, I'd suggest you, if you were using a DSLR taking stills, try at least 10,
10, yeah.
and preferably about 30.
Right.
And Registax only seems to know JPEG and a few other formats. It doesn't seem to know RAW images. I don't know if anyone wants to argue against that, but I can't persuade this version to do any better than that, which is a pity because RAW is the best.
All the camera manufacturers have different versions of RAW.
Right. So it's a different, difficult thing, is it?
It's kind of universal.
Yeah.
No, I think there has been minor modifications to it, but it is fairly consistent. But
It's, how far I've got so far. Over the last few years, I've tended to start at the bottom and work my way up. I used to start at the top and work my way down, but it seems logical to me
oh yeah,
to start at the bottom and the coarsest refinements and then go to the finer.
Is that coloured column still just black and white, or?
It's a colour image.
Yeah, no, that modification that you've just done.
These are all
The
just,
bands just came up a bit. Is that?
yeah, it's
black and white contrast.
it is just a sharpening process, what I'm doing now.
It looks more like just increasing contrast than sharpening from here.
I think the increase in contrast is a consequence of the sharpening process. It's
Yeah.
bringing the various parts of what it thinks is the same image together. And again, I've got a square here that says do all, and it's nice to press because you can see the difference between what you have now and what you used to have in the original image. So if I press it, just look at how it used to be. Look especially at the red spot. I'll press it. That's how it was. And I don't know about you, but I'm seeing various dark features just under this belt as well. This northern belt.
like a shadowing.
Yeah. I mean, normally I spend a very long time doing this. I won't now because it's a waste of time in this session. But let's just do a few other things. Oh, that's something else it's not letting me do. It's not allowing me to treat it as a color image. And I wanted to do something to the color. So that's great, that, isn't it? It's playing games with me. The thing I particularly wanted to show you is this alignment tool. I won't do it, but I'll just show it you. And the trouble with imaging planets, especially now at this season, is that they are low down in the atmosphere and there's a lot of atmospheric colour dispersion going on. Now, I don't know what sort of view you've got of that image, but can you see that the top left is bluey and the bottom right is reddy? Can you see that?
No, not really.
See the blue.
Looks black and white to me.
It's more
Does
than
it?
that's on the big screen here.
What colour did James's jumper look like to you? Now, this bit does have a bluey rim to it.
Yeah.
This bit does have a little bit of in comparison, a reddy tinge compared with that. I have to go back to Ray's presentation. Now, this alignment tool, red, green, blue alignment tool, can, to some degree, it can counter that. And what it does, you say, right, it's too blue as you go up, and it's too blue as you go to the left. So what you do is you decrease the blue as you go up. That's up on the graph is Y, like an X and a Y axis. So I would use perhaps -2. Presumably, we can't see it, but you would want to increase the blue on the opposite side. And for the X position, again, thinking of it as a graph, that it's too blue on the left. So if you go up on the graph, you're going left to right. So I want to increase it as we go along from left to right. There's not enough red. What am I saying? Sorry. Yes. No. I'm talking about blue, aren't I? Shouldn't have done that.
You're moving the blue relative to the red.
Yes. So going up the X, I said up and to the left. If you imagine a graph that goes from left to right, I actually want more blue, because it's on the left of the image that I've got not enough blue. So I might find myself doing that. Now, the red, I don't know about you, but I can't see much of the red. If my program, which isn't behaving itself at the moment, if it allowed me, I could increase the color saturation, and I could get a better image, a better view of where the red and the blue are. So I won't go any further with that, but I'm just saying it's a very powerful alignment tool. And if you don't use it, especially in this season, if you don't use it, you will find that there is a red fringe on one end and a blue fringe on the other. Now, just one other thing I'd like to show you is just having a look at the screen, because I can't see. What's that little top one? Gamma. Gamma, that's the one I want. Yeah. I want to show you a button called Gamma, which is there. And this, if you like, is like a graph of brightness against contrast almost. So if I go up from the middle, it does that. If I do all, it'll brighten the image. If I go to the left, oops. Oh, it's showing me now as if I go down, I'll darken the image. Can you see on this next picture, it's sort of reduced the contrast. You're seeing inside the darker bits better. If I went up to the other side, it's still bright, but it's much more what I would call contrasting there. So, you know, it's up to you to decide what you want. And finally, you'll want to save what you've produced. And you can do that in a box. So you can decide how much to crop. And then when you press the save button, which is somewhere, save image, they are top left, it will just save that, and you can get rid of a lot of the unwanted background. Now I'm going to stop sharing that and just show you one that I produced earlier, as they say, on certain children's programs. And that's what, when I was playing around yesterday with the image. So that you must admit, when you remember the original movie, which was jumping about all over the place, you could hardly, you know, it would hardly be still enough to make anything out. And you end up with that, and a very nicely coloured red spot as well.
Yeah, the red spot's impressive. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll stop sharing. And it's now 20 past. And I was wondering.
Can I just ask a quick question? So that the video, the atmospheric movement you got, was that the one that you showed, was that typical, good, bad compared to average? I ask because I've only had one go at Saturn, and it was just awful. It was all over the place. Nowhere
It
near
will
as clear as
It
yours.
will be for the next few years. Forget Saturn until at least another year's gone by, I think. Unless you can go on a holiday somewhere near the equator, you get a good Saturn then. But all the planets are in the same boat. I think Mars is a bit better than the rest, and Steve did a very good Mars when it was at its best a few years ago. The seeing and the focusing and the stillness of the atmosphere was quite good on that day. The only thing that ruined it was the wind. I think it was from the new in, that particular one. I'm aware that time is going by. You're welcome to email me questions on the chat line, and perhaps other more experienced people than me can have a go at Registax answering. But I would like to just use the last few minutes to ask if anyone has got any general astronomy questions, which someone, if you're lucky, might be able to answer. We've already had one on the chat line from Vad, which I now regard as being answered. I hope you're satisfied with that, Vad. Yeah, go on, Andy's got a hand up.
With those images of the sunspots, you said that it's very common for there to be two sunspots, and then you showed a diagram with the looping magnetic arc. What's happening with those sunspots that are just lone? Is the magnetic field?
There'll be another component, but it won't have been. It won't be concentrated enough to form a dark sunspot, so it will be a more spread out thing. In the H alpha, you'd see it. You would see a brighter region, but because it's sort of the magnetic flux sort of spread out, it's not done enough to form a visible sunspot.
So it's not strength of the field, is it?
No, it is spread. I mean, if you can gather it all up into one place and plonk it down, yes, it would form another spot, but it's sprayed out. So you don't reach the threshold where you can see it. But I would say in hydrogen alpha, you almost always can see the partnering. And very often, like the one here, the hydrogen alpha action is going on between those two big components. That's where the flares are coming out. In fact, there was a flare going on at tea time, which I could see. And in ultraviolet, which of course you can't do at all, that's where you see all these loops and the energy. It's a hell of a lot of energy in there.
And the flares are
well, effectively, you've got
originate between the two.
Essentially, yes, because they're in the magnetic field, and the plasma that's around, that's held into that arc, if you like, that will just be when the magnetic fluxes, when they ping, they literally flung out. But you can see it in H alpha because you can see the plasma getting hot.
Good. Yeah. Thank you.
Any more questions? Anyone from the Zoom Ethernet?
I'm going to ask another question of Ray about red dwarfs. Why do red dwarfs appear to have enormous outbursts like you showed in one of the diagrams, where more so than sort of normal, well, non-red dwarfs, I would say?
Yeah, I can't say very much on that. Perhaps we ought to do a part B on the actual astrophysics of red dwarfs. It's all down to the magnetic fields again. But why such a small star and relatively cool star should create such enormous local magnetic fields, I don't know, unless Robin has anything to add. I'd have to work on that one, I'm afraid. I'm not sure it's very well understood, to be honest.
I might well read that myself.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it looks like time has beaten us. We've got to stop the meeting at well, about nowish to be out by 9:30. So